Hi guys, welcome back. It's been about 4 weeks since my last video, and with Christmas and New Year things have been kind of hectic, so I've not had a chance to upload. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to try and go through all the exciting things in the mini RC world that we've been doing over here in the garage racing. So last time I posted a video, it was about this beautiful car, the Mini Z MA-020VE Pro, which is a ready set that I got. Apart from the transmitter, it comes with the shell, the wheels, the gyro, and it's based on the previous generation all-wheel drive. That video was done as an unboxing, and we've since raced the car, and I'll talk about that later. Things have changed in the opposite direction from what I was heading in terms of mini RC. I was really getting into my GLA, my BZ3 and my SZ, and I kind of was letting the mini Zs take a back seat almost. But a few things changed after I weighed all the cars. So I did a video, I think before Christmas, where I weighed all the individual cars that we had, and that changed my perspective on what I thought of the mini Z 030 Evo, which I love, but I didn't think would quite reach the performance of the atomic cars that I had, or the GLA. But one of the things that became apparent was that the chassis itself weighed pretty much the same as, let me just make some space. So it weighed about 120 grams. So if you can see that, let's just adjust that down so you can see. There we go, 120 grams. So that was my Mini Z Evo. My BZ3, let's take the battery out. And it all becomes about the batteries in a moment. It'll become apparent. Let me just see if I can get this out. It does just click out. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Come on. I may have to edit this bit out later if it gets too embarrassing. Normally this just clips out really easy. I think this battery's got an extra bit sticky on it, which makes, there we go. Yes, it has. Okay, so let's take the battery out and weigh the BZ3, and that comes in at 125 grams. So this BZ3 is actually heavier. The chassis is heavier than the Mini Z Evo. Now, in my last video comparing these two, I made a big deal about how I didn't think the Evo would be able to get the same times as the BZ3. Both were fast, but there was a difference that the BZ3 seemed to open up quite easily. Well, after evaluating the chassis individually and realising the Evo is actually lighter, I thought, well, why does it seem slower on the track? So at the time we were using EBLs, 1100 batteries, and I weighed them. So the 4 EBLs there come out at about 53 grams. I'm trying to get this in focus so you can see it a little bit better, but I'll try again. Bear with me a second. There we go, 53 grams. So this got me thinking, okay, so what does the BZ3 battery weigh? Well, that's about 16 grams. So the Mini Z has actually got a 8,500 kV motor, and the BZ3's only got a 5,500 kV. So if it's not lighter, if it's not got a more powerful motor, you know, what's the difference? Well, there is a weight difference, and it comes from the batteries. So that got me thinking. I thought, well, how can I make my Mini Z more competitive? Let's try some lighter batteries. So the first thing I did, and I'd seen this recommended on the Facebook groups, that these 750 Orion batteries are meant to be pretty good. So I got some of these and I weighed them. There can be a difference if these are charged or discharged, but for this video I'm not going to go to the trouble of working out exactly those gram differences. So those there are 48 grams. So they're already, you know, I think a good 8 grams lighter than the 1100s I was using. And that makes a big difference to a car this small. Okay, and these are punchier as well. They give more punch, they don't last as long. So I tested the car with these and definitely improved the speed and the handling. So straight away I was, okay, oh, this is interesting. What else can we do? So I went on to the comment section of a few of the videos. I asked a few of the more knowledgeable guys what they thought, and so began my mission to find batteries that would make this car competitive. The first ones I tried were these non-rechargeable, so these are not rechargeable Energizer lithium batteries, 1000 milliamp 1.5 volts, and these are way lighter as well, so I've only got 2 there, but so they'd weigh about 30 grams for 4 of them. Okay, so again they are lighter by a good 26 grams to the batteries that I was using. Instantly I saw a performance boost with the Evo. I became even more intrigued and I thought, okay, what else can I do? So I went on the hunt for some lithium ion batteries that would do the miracle that I was after. I performed that miracle and I discovered these. These are a brand called Soshine, if I'm saying that correctly, and they're 3.2 volts per cell, so they're double what a normal cell would be. So the idea is you'd use 2 of these rather than 4 with 2 of these connector batteries that came with it. And these are basically duds, they weigh nothing, they're just there to complete the circuit. So if we weigh these now, all together, let's see if I can stand those up. So that's about 23 grams. Okay, so we've got 23 grams, that's a saving of 33 grams of weight. So if we put the car on the scales now, so our racing weight, and if we put the shell on as well, for argument's sake, our racing weight would be 177 grams. Okay, let's compare that to the BZ3. So BZ3 goes on the scales, 125. Obviously this is with radio gear, transponder, gyro, same as the Mini Z. Battery goes on, 141. Shell goes on, 173. Ah, okay. Now we're starting to look like we're a similar weight. Right, so this changes things. We now have 2 cars that are equally weighted. And I can tell you it made a huge difference, a massive difference. The Mini Z Evo became alive. Not only was it more responsive, it was lighter, so it cruised around the corners better. And I am glad to say, I'll put some race footage on later. It may have the white shell on the race footage, so don't get confused, because I've got a identical white shell to this. So the lap times, the best lap time previously set by the BZ3, I think was 7.5 or something like that. Evo did it in 7.4. Now the downside to these batteries, these particular ones, is they don't last as long. So I probably manage on our circuit 2 races of 25 laps. So every 50 laps I'd change them. But because I'm only having to change these 2, the connectors, you don't have to change, obviously they're not charged. It's very easy just to switch them over and keep the car competitive. So suddenly now I've set times with the Evo that I'm struggling to beat with the BZ3 and the SZ and the GLA. None of them can match its time at the moment. Now, granted, there are some tune-ups I can do to these other cars, which I will do, and then see if I can beat it again. But from what I thought was going to be a good car, and yes, it did set fast times quite easily, has suddenly become spectacular. Now, this is on our smaller circuit. I know a lot of you out there who race BZ3s, race them on big open circuits. I have no doubt it's got a superior chassis, but it would be interesting to see how a Mini Z would perform with these batteries, lighter as it is, on a bigger circuit, because it certainly proved itself stable and responsive enough to handle our small circuit. It was absolutely amazing to see the transformation. One other thing I did do to improve the Mini Z's handling, I did change some of the settings on my MB4. I included some anti-lock brakes, and I'll show you what my settings are just so you can see them in case you get the same batteries. Now, I'm not recommending you use these batteries because I have no idea what the long-term effects on the circuitry is, but it seems to handle the 3.2 times 2, so 6.4 volts quite well. I'm not sure what I'd make of, I haven't tried the more powerful versions which I've got, which I'll come to in a moment. which are 3.7 volts each, so they're 7.4 altogether, and they have 350 milliamps per battery. So I'm not sure how my Mini Z's going to handle those, but here we go. Just so, because I often get asked, this is the anti-lock brake setting I set for my car on the circuit, and you'll see that later on in some of the race footage. I've actually got so much race footage, it's taking me so long just to sift through it to find the bits I want to show you. It's one of the reasons why I haven't got around to actually making a video. Okay, so let's just move that out of the way. That was just for anyone who wanted to know the settings I've got. My gyro's at about 60%, I think, on the Mini Z Evo. So I've gone one better, and I've got these other batteries now, which are the Soshine 350 milliamp, and these are 3.7 volts. So if you can see that, I'll see if I can get it to focus on. Yep, 3.7 volts. And the ones I was using before, I'll zoom those in as well, just so you can see what they are. There we go, 3.2 volts. You can just about see it. Okay, great. I'll try and shorten that section so you're not stuck watching me wiggling my fingers around with the battery. Okay, so that changes things. That changes things completely. Suddenly what I thought was not a competitive car, you know, certainly not on a higher level, is now setting record times. Now this is where the bigger surprise comes in, and I've got lots more information about this. Our friend, the Mini Z020VE Pro. If I told you this actually now holds the lap record, Jay got a 7.3 with this, and he loved this car, and it seemed to just take to it. It's more tail happy. It has got the advantage of being a smaller car. It's 90mm wheelbase versus my Evo, which is a 98, and it's wider. So on a small track, this car does get around more easily. But there is something about this car which makes it so beautiful to drive. Anyone who's driven it on the track has just taken to it straight away, and it's performed. It's not easy, but if you can get it right, it will outperform most of, well, nearly all the newer, fancier version cars that I've got, the BZ3, the SZ, the GLA. Now, like I said, there's a lot of retuning to do. I found something fancy with the Mini Z which made it better. So this car performed that time running on the Orion 750s. It just goes to show how good it is. Now, one thing I will say, and this is one thing, but by the way, the weight of this car, if you're interested, is the same as a normal Mini Z MA-020. I think it's about 120 grams of that battery's in. So the same rule applies to this, but this is perfectly balanced. One thing I'll say is we did use the EX6, and for anyone out there who doubts the difference now, we tried the KT18 with this. We tried it with a couple of regular Mini Zs. We've got Mini Zs which are ASF, which are you can use both those transmitters with, and again, these behave so much differently using the EX6. It makes all the difference. So I get asked that question a lot. Is it worth having the cheaper transmitter with the Evo or the VE Pro? And unfortunately, I don't think it's a good idea. I think if you're going to get these cars, they cost so much. If you want to get the real performance out of the steering, because they have got better servos in, then certainly the EX6 is the way to go. And even with these older ASF cars, when we've run the EX6 with them, they've just performed that much better. The steering is that much more responsive. It just feels like you've gone from something that's analog to digital proportional, even though the you know, the KT18 is digital proportional. I'm not saying it's a bad transmitter. If you asked me the question, if I had to race with one, I'd want the EX6 every time. And the same with obviously the Nobel Fly Sky. I prefer that with the Mini Z Evo to the EX6. That's my personal preference, but certainly with these cars you don't get a choice. It's either, you know, Pro or Kyosho, and the EX6 is brilliant. Absolutely loved it. So this car actually set the fastest time. Now, that's more down to the fact that Jay did also run this car all day. He didn't run anything else. Point being, not this an excuse for me. I was changing between this car and other cars for the videos I was making. So the Evo, I actually had a good run with it, and I think I can match this, if not beat it. I definitely won in some of the races. So it really comes down to, I think, driving style. But for an older car, it is superb. And certainly if you can get hold of one of these, definitely get one. So I'm not talking about the shell, I'm talking about the actual chassis underneath, the MA-020VE Pro. Fantastic, fantastic. So far removed from the standard Mini Z Sports, I can't explain. So in the last video I explained this had DWS and it had brushless motor, but honestly it's a superb car. And I'll try and put some footage up so you can actually see it outperform the other cars, because for something that's quite old, amazing. So another car that outperformed what we thought it would, and this is, I'm going to actually thank one of the other YouTube channels for the tips he gave me for this car. This is my Mini Z MA-020 Sports, which I modified myself. So this started off as a red Mazda RX-7, and I'll go through all the modifications I've made to it. I won't go through details on how it was done, but I'll go through the modifications and I'll tell you how it performed, because this car surprised us as well. So what this is, it's a Mini Z chassis. So it was originally an MA-020 Sports. It's had all the radio gear removed. So I removed the servo, I removed the steering mechanism, I removed the circuit board, the EC, the receiver, everything. I then ordered from Miracle Mart this front double wishbone suspension setup that you can see here. Okay, at the back I ordered their DWS, the double wishbone suspension. So this is not the, this is the atomic version basically. It's way cheaper. I think it's about a fifth of the cost, and it transformed the handling of the car. So with this I could fully adjust the ride height of each wheel, the suspension. It just makes everything, you know, the camber even, it's so good. Okay, so it's a bit fiddly to install, and I had to, I think it's more designed for the M010 rather than the M020, because at the front the mounting's slightly different. I had to adapt it myself. If anyone wants to see how exactly I did this, I can dedicate a whole video to it. And instead I installed, if you look in there now, there's a, I don't know if that's going to focus, maybe I should try and turn it the other way around, sorry guys. That's a Hobby Wing or Hobby King 10 amp brushless speedo. I cut a hole in the chassis here so I could slot that in. I know it looks a bit messy here at the moment, but it's actually, it could be tidied up by shortening some wires, but at this point I'm just happy it works fine. Brushless motor, which I got again from, I think, Banggood. It's a 6000 kV. This is a radio link receiver, and it's got a gyro built in. So it's a radio link RC4GS, and it's got the gyro built in. What else did we do? Okay, that's a transponder here. There's a lights kit, because I just got carried away. I love this car so much. A lights kit I installed as well. The battery goes here, and this good old rubber band is actually the easiest battery mounting system out of all my cars. It is so easy. It literally, you just plonk the battery in and plug it in and off you go. It's just so easy. There you go, see, like that. So, and then the advice I took was BMR, which is one of the other channels I follow. Great guy, he's really into his Mini Zs. Anything to do with Mini Zs, all-wheel drives and upgrading, he's your man. He recommended to me to try a front one-way diff. So I installed it in this car, and I have to say, for this car in particular, it just works a dream. The power that you get down the straight, and then it almost acts like it enables the car to be able to do a handbrake turn no matter how fast I'm going, and turn on the spot. So I absolutely love this. It's not for everyone, but I love it. And I also stiffened up the rear diff. It's got an atomic rear diff in this car, so I've actually made it a little bit tighter. And it's a beautiful car, and the only thing I can compare it to is the Mini Z VE Pro over there. Because I've got one LiPo on the outside and there's no two cells further in, it balances out the weight and makes the car much more balanced. So if you think before, there'd be 4 AA batteries in this, quite heavy, 2 of them in the middle, 2 of them on the outside. Now you've just got a LiPo here, and you've got the motor there to counterbalance. And the weighting is actually more even, and it improves the handling of this car. And I actually set, I think, a 7.5 with this car on our circuit, which is fast. Anything under 8 is really fast. So a 7.5, and I only use it towards the end of the day, and I love the way it drove so much. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Steering. Everyone wants to know about the steering. I what I've got here is a WL Toys K989 metal geared servo that I got off eBay. Pretty cheap. I'm going to try and zoom in and show you what the steering mechanism is. So I've got a rod that I've attached across to a piece of plastic which screws in to the standard rod that came with this suspension system. So you can see there's the steering tie rod, and this is the modified system that I got from Atomic. But this bit here, that plastic bit, I mean, it's a piece of plastic about 3mm by about 10, and I've screwed a arm in off my Atomic. You can just probably see it there. So I've actually got proper servo steering on this, and it is very responsive and very good. You can also probably notice there's not that much shake in my wheels that you get with the standard Mini Z Sports. So yeah, just make sure those wires aren't touching there. Yeah, there's a little bit of give today, but needs a bit of tuning up. But it has been raced pretty hard. And this car did the business. It didn't cut out. There was no problems with the handling. It fired around the circuit, and it really, really, against the VE Pro, because that's the one I raced it against, it was giving it trouble. And once I get the hang of driving this, I think I can set the fastest lap time with this fella, because it's small and agile. So yeah, it's been an interesting month of racing. I've gone from being die hard on the Atomic and the GLA to suddenly going back to the Mini Zs, and we've actually got a couple of Mini Zs off eBay that we're going to modify. So I've got one here which is the so this is a MA-010. It's quite an old car. I got it off eBay, ready spec'd up, so these modifications are already on. So you can see the different suspension setup here to the newer version, which has the front camber arm. But this is actually very secure and solid. And this is what we're going to modify. So I've actually ordered some boards off Banggood, which are brushless boards, ASF brushless boards, which will work with our EX6 or with the KT18. And they have a gyro socket and ICS programming lead as well, so we can tune these up. But I ran this as is with my fancy batteries, the new lithium ion ones that I've got there, the Soshine ones. And this thing's a beast. It was a beast without a gyro, without anything. It was amazing. So looking forward to testing this beast out before and after modification. So more videos to come about these cars. I'll probably make a series as we modify them, and depending on what I get asked, I may even do a series about modifying your own Mini Z all-wheel drive. But you know, warning, once you make this modification, there's no going back. You know, you're chopping bits of plastic off the chassis, off the tub frame. You're not going to be able to get that back again. But as you can see, the monster that I've made here is just something special. So I am very pleased with it. By the way, I haven't lost the wing mirrors off this car. I just didn't stick them on. Often if I'm racing, I don't. If they've got an option not to stick the wing mirrors on, I won't. Don't want to risk losing them. So that's the story so far, guys. So lots of excitement there. I've got so much more I wanted to cover in this video. Oh, by the way, actually, I might as well point this out before I forget. The charger, I had to get a special charger for those lithium batteries. You can't charge them with a normal nickel metal hydride battery charger. So this will charge lithium ion AAs, AAAs, AAs, even 9-volt batteries. Yeah, so I had to get a special charger, but it's fine. I mean, I'm more than happy, and I won't run my Mini Z now without these. I'm going to experiment at some point when I pluck up the courage to try these 350 milliamp batteries in my Evo. I'm just scared of blowing the circuits, that's all. I've tried it in the one I got off eBay, and it was absolutely fine. And that car's a beast without, even with a brushed motor with these batteries. It's a bit like our friend the WL Toys K989. The standard chassis out the box it's good, but what makes that car so fast is the fact that you can run a LiPo battery on it. And that's where I think the real difference has been for the Mini Zs, not having the LiPo batteries. But certainly with the batteries I've got now, my Mini Z Evo is as competitive on our circuit as my BZ3. In fact, at the moment, it's beating the BZ3 and the SZ and the GLA. So you could, I think the rematch, the Mini Z has won. And certainly for the time being, it is the top car. Both the VE Pro and the Evo, they are both at the moment the fastest cars on our circuit, which I never thought I'd be saying. I'll try and include some race footage of all the different cars. I am going to do a more detailed video where I actually will overlay races of each car so you can compare each one and the handling. I've just got so much footage it's hard to shift through. What I'll probably do first though is for this video I'll probably include some footage of this car, the VE Pro, the Evo and this Mini Z Subaru flying around the track. I'll try and include some footage of the BZ3 because that's the car that I've been comparing the Evo to in the previous videos, so I'll fire some of that. I do think the BZ3 we need to do something with the settings on the width of the wheels, and I think that will improve that. But there is something about it being belt drive that doesn't work as well on a short, smaller circuit. I think that's part of the issue, but it's still fantastically fast. You know, if you look at my earlier videos, I was saying it was the fastest out of all my cars. Well, now things have changed with a bit of modification, and that's what I love about this. We can modify cars and make them better. Makes it more fun. Okay, guys, so I'll leave you with some race footage. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. Remember, this isn't for kids. This is, you know, we're using lithium-ion batteries, soldering irons. There are small parts, complicated radio systems. So I'm going to put a little disclaimer up on every video now, just so YouTube doesn't mark my video for children, just to say that it's not for under 14s without supervision. Okay, guys, thanks a lot, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.
Mm-hmm.